Numbers and calls now, whichever I get up. Light up my card with a sweet one bliss. Someone flicks me a bag it up. So, it's another one. It's another one, yeah. It's a full strong, yeah. Oh, it's another one. It's another one, yeah.
This is Sherry Abbasi for iBoxingHub, and today I'm joined by Mr. Terry Lane, advisor to a Mr. Zhang, currently set the world alight with his knockout last weekend. Terry, thank you for joining me today, and how are you doing?
I'm doing well, a little jet lagged. I actually got in from London yesterday morning, but good to be on, Sherry. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for your time, Terry. Terry, I think the best place to start, like we just said, Big Bang himself last weekend with the potentially knockout of the year over the Granite Chin Joyce in the rematch. It's been 1 week since that's happened. What has been the response, and what have you discussed with the team since then?
Well, I mean, the response has been incredible. I actually kind of got to admit, I did not expect the response to be like how it's been in the past week, because I thought it was kind of a lateral move to beat Joyce again. I guess it was the fashion maybe in which it happened that just created so much buzz. But, you know, phone's been ringing off the hook. Jay went back home to a hero's welcome. I mean, the videos I'm seeing back there are insane. He went from basically kind of a figure in a fringe sport in China to a national hero in a few months because of the two Joyce fights. So the videos that I'm seeing from China, the response from China has been kind of mind-boggling numbers. And look, we're in a good position. Look, we're talking with the Warrants. We're talking with Queensbury. Obviously, the Usyk and Tyson Fury fight got announced, so those guys are going to be locked up. But we're talking about plans B and C and kind of how to move forward next. Jay doesn't want to sit back and wait. He wants big fights. He wants big names.
Absolutely. I mean, for someone like Zhang, the way his career has gone, obviously he's currently on the older side, 40 years old, but he just had his two best wins of his career. So obviously for him, you can say in a lot of ways, age isn't really a factor right now. I mean, he's just capitalized on that now. And how would you look to maneuver him moving forward? Because a lot of people will say Joyce did the wrong thing by taking on such a challenge and compromised his mandatory position. How would you look to maneuver Zhang moving forward?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm speaking for him. I mean, he really cares about his legacy. He wants to be world champion. You know, he doesn't want to be interim champion. He wants to be world champion. So unfortunately, all the belts are being fought for at some date in the future that we don't know yet officially. Look, I mean, but again, we're not going to wait. We'll take risky fights moving forward. I mean, whether it's a Joshua or a Wilder or something like that. He is 40. I've said this before, and it's not supposed to happen, but every fight we see improvements, little adjustments to the team here or how he trains there, little things. He's always looking to improve. He's his own worst critic. He's striving for perfection. So, I mean, and for heavyweights, it's a little different because you don't have to cut the weight. And sometimes these knockouts happen so fast. He doesn't have like a lot of brutal fights under his belt. So he's got years left, and we're just going to see, we're going to see where it goes.
Excellent. So, like you said, he's established himself as the interim heavyweight champion for the WBO, which makes him the mandatory after the IBF is obviously done as well. He was arguably on the wrong side of the decision against Hrgovic, and now he's managed to bounce back straight away. So within the space of a year, he's probably in a better position, arguably, than he was then, if that makes sense, because he's managed to get his profile to another level as well.
You know, life is funny. I mean, I was there in Saudi Arabia when the decision was read. I mean, he obviously had the knockdown against Hrgovic early in the fight. And then, I mean, there was judges were scoring rounds for a man who was turning his back and walking away. So I thought there was a couple of times it could have been a DQ. So I think there's only one person that I've spoken with that even thought that the fight might have been scored a draw. Everybody else knew that we won the fight. So it was our last fight with Matchroom. He won the fight, but didn't get his hands raised. So we didn't have to extend with Matchroom. It opened up the other opportunities. We wanted the fight with Joyce. So again, were we disappointed majorly, but it opened up the opportunity, and it is the reason we're here while we're here. So life is funny that way.
Absolutely. It's probably worked out in a way where it's going to benefit him, like we said, because he's got two big wins under his belt. He's guaranteed mandatory as long as obviously nothing goes wrong, touch wood, moving forward for him. How has the response been in China? Like you said, he's got heroes welcome. China generally hasn't been a massive boxing market. We've seen Pacquiao I think it was in Macau. He had two fights there against Algerian Rios back in 13 and 14.
Right.
And we've seen certain boxers do well as amateurs, but not really go on to set the world alight there. We've had a lot of talk about the bird's nest in China and the potential and the proposition of a massive fight there, the spectacle that it could be in an arena like that. And people would definitely turn out. We've seen in the region itself, someone like Inoue he sells out arenas. Yeah. Can we potentially see a massive fight for Zhang in his home country moving forward?
Actually, just before I hop on with you, I had a phone call about this very subject with some partners in China. Especially after last weekend, there's a huge appetite for live boxing there. It's not the easiest thing to get done, but I think we've taken a huge leap forward in that regard. The thing, too, to answer your question, I mean, like the Pacquiao fight in Macau actually was at Zhu Shiming, his pro debut in Macau back in 2013 or 2012, right after the Olympics, whenever it was. The thing is there have only been a handful of Chinese boxers, and you need that hometown guy, that home country guy. There have been Zhu Can, who he had some success. He was a WBA champion, very popular, but really there hasn't been a guy to cross over like we've just seen after last weekend. And that's the guy. Zhilei has really taken all of boxing to a different level in China. And now I think the stage is set to do something there.
And obviously not getting into the conversation you just had on the phone, but if that was a likely scenario where we could get him into the bird's nest, who would be the ideal opponent for you?
Well, gosh, what do I want to divulge here? Look, there's going to be levels of guys. I mean, look, a lot of the big heavyweights, they hear the numbers that are being thrown around with Saudi, to get some of these guys, these top names in the ring, it just takes insane numbers. And that's when like everybody has to put their heads together. But I mean, listen, I would love to fight Anthony Joshua in China. That would be, personally, this is Terry talking, my first choice. I know my team likes that. I know Zhilei loves that fight. I think there's something in it for Joshua because now anybody who fights Zhilei, whether it's in China or not, it's shown in China, and they're going to have literally hundreds of millions of people watching. So whatever they care about their legacy or their global profile, you're fighting, to a good chunk of the world that's going to be watching you if you step in the ring with Zhilei. So now we provide value for guys to fight us. No one's rushing to fight us, but there's a lot of value into fighting Zhilei now just because of the Chinese audience, live or otherwise. So listen, that's my appeal to Joshua and to Deontay Wilder right now. So if you guys watch this, please
get in touch. Again, like about Zhilei himself, he's a big man. He's a fluid puncher. He can clearly bang as well. We've seen the power he carries that throughout the fight. For him now, like you said, people aren't going to be rushing to fight him, but that potential of unlocking that continent and that part of the world, Asia, obviously with the Arab money, and obviously China, Japan, these sort of countries where you really can create something special there. Because like you said, they're not, we think of Vegas, we think of the UK. These are constant sort of regions that are producing boxing every week or so. And then recently you had Matchroom sign that deal in Japan. I know it's only for 3 events a year, but that's still a big groundbreaking deal in its own right. How important is it that someone like Zhang is the person to push that forward? Because he's a heavyweight. Heavyweights are what people, the casuals in particular, will always follow. Muhammad Ali, Tyson, Lennox Lewis. These are guys whose names will live forever. How important is it to capitalize on this momentum now and really try and push for something in China?
Well, I mean, this is something that we have to do it now. I mean, we have this moment. We don't know how long he has left. He is 40, and then there's a saying that fighters get old overnight. You never know what fight it's going to be where you just didn't have it like you did in the last fight. So we don't know, but we have to capitalize on now, not just for Zhilei, but like you said, for a whole country, a whole continent. But it is great that he's a heavyweight because that is what people are drawn to. All of the great Chinese fighters, Zhu Can, Zhu Shiming, they were smaller guys, and it's just harder to get that kind of oomph behind them. There's just that cachet with the big men. There always has been, always will be. That's just the way boxing is, for better or for worse. So the fact that Zhilei had these 2 amazing wins in April and now in September 23rd, where he beat a really great fighter, it just, again, he took this to a new level there. But it's going to be important not for just China, but for an entire continent. I saw Frank Smith was also in Malaysia doing some deal. So, I mean, we're talking about, it's still kind of new in Asia, but there's some of the bigger names are coming out of there now. So, and all the money, like you said, from Saudi, we had the Kazakhs are doing their thing too. So, I mean, look, that we got to pay attention now over there, right?
Absolutely. Completely spot on. Obviously, he's tied in with Queensbury at the moment. How many fights has he got in his contract with them at the moment?
Well, we're talking about extending. We got 2 more, but I mean, we're pretty happy. They've been great collaborators. I'm going to be meeting with George Warren here in a few days. He's going to, I think, be stateside. So we'll sit down and talk. And sorry, George, for revealing your travel plans. But we, yeah, I mean, we're happy. And I got to say also, it's a dream come true for us to do any boxing in the UK because it's the best market. I love the passion of the fans. You guys can actually sell tickets. It's great. So I would not mind going back to fight there either. But yeah, we're with Queensbury right now.
Okay, and do you have a co-promotional deal with Top Rank, or is that not actually a thing yet?
No paper with them or anything, but they I don't know what the arrangement is with Queensbury, but they obviously do a lot of close work together. So it's their kind of arrangement together. But it helps us because they're able to get Gillet on ESPN Plus. I mean, you got to remember that Gillet's bounced around with a lot of promoters, and DAZN still isn't. It's still growing here in the States, but it's not at the level that an ESPN is, or like a BT Sports or TNT Sports is there. So when he fought Joyce the first time, a lot of people who never saw him fight, maybe they saw the name or maybe they've seen a highlight on social media, but this is the first time they got to really watch him fight.
Exactly. Since we're talking about the heavyweight division, obviously we have to touch on the announcement the other day about Fury and Usyk. So there's always a bit of doubt to a lot of people, especially Fury himself, because you never know what he means when he says things. He'll say one thing and then mean something else, and he'll play these games, and he loves all that. So the fight is signed. We haven't got a venue or an official date yet, but we know that the Saudis are, really making a big push for Riyadh season and the whole Vision 2030 to make this the new Vegas and have all the big sporting events. They're signing the biggest football stars. They're really pushing forward in the sports side. For you now, that fight, how would you see it going? And obviously, it's the first undisputed heavyweight champion since 1999, so it's been a long time coming. We've been waiting a long time. And how important is it that the marquee division in a sport like boxing has one face, one name, one champion?
Well, first of all, I got to say I'm a little disappointed that fight got made because I think we could make a fight with Fury, which I think is going to happen in the future anyway. But we wanted to see it happen next. But look, I knew the announcement was coming before it came. Never seen so many people send me like the poster, like as if I hadn't seen the announcement. And they did it right before the weigh-in of Canelo, which was ballsy, which was, anyway, that's another story. Here's how I see the fight going. I think that the size is going to make the huge difference here. I see Fury taking it. And to have a undisputed heavyweight champion in the 4-belt era, like you said, like to follow up on what you said, is extremely special, extremely rare. So I'm disappointed, but the fan in me is very excited as well. I see this going Fury's way. But listen, we have a ton of respect for Alexander Usyk, and we're excited to watch it. But I think this goes Fury's way.
Fair enough. And just touching on a point you made about the 4-belt era, we get told boxing is full of too many different politics and agendas, and there's a lot of this side of the street, and you can't make this fight, you can't make that fight. If that is the case, why is it that we've seen so many undisputed champions and all these sanctioning bodies working together to make those fights happen in the last 2 years? We've crowned about 4, potentially in a way before the end of the year, it'll be a 2-time undisputed like Crawford. Canelo's got all 4 belts right now, and then we're seeing Usyk and Fury as well for all the belts. If the sport is struggling or there's so many different agendas, how is it that we're getting all these undisputed champions?
I don't know. It could be just a coincidence. I really don't have a good answer for it. I mean, there's a saying, I hope I'm going to butcher this, but like, boxing will never die and no one can save it.
Oh, yes.
Boxing historically has these peaks and valleys. And I think we're at not a peak, because I see brighter days ahead, not dark days ahead. But I think we are on this like uprise where everybody thought, UFC, MMA is just taking over. Too many sanctioning bodies, the promoters can't make deals, network can't make deals. A lot of that is true. That is true. Fights should be a lot easier to get made, but boxing's still the wild, wild west of sports. So I think so many undisputed champions and fights coming all at this time is sort of a coincidence, but it could be that just the sanctioning bodies think it's better for everybody if these fights get made. But listen, a lot of fighters, if you're representing a fighter who's put in his dues and is, climbing up the ranks of, let's just say, the WBC, you've earned your shot too there. So we can't forget the fighters, because I've been in this position. We can't forget the fighters who are kind of being put on hold while these other mega fights are getting made. It's good for boxing, but at the same time, other guys are earning their keep too and earning those spots. So at some point, even after the big heavyweight fight, I'm sure like the belts are going to disperse, and then we're going to see the kind of vacuum that creates and like the response to it. So we'll see where we stand there. But I don't have a great answer to that, man. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I suppose once the belts all get splintered again, the cycle restarts, and it's about who's the best in the division and can we get the next undisputed champion. It all just starts again, doesn't it? That's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say it's going to be like a big like reset button, being hit.
Absolutely. Have you, just to sort of go back to the whole Asia side of things, have you earmarked any new talent coming through?
Well, it's funny. I kind of see myself as a promoter. I'm actually doing an event in Lake Tahoe with Top Rank on November 4th. So that's my career. I kind of accidentally found myself in this position now I have a partnership. But yeah, there actually is a lot coming out of China. I mean, we're getting called by anybody who's put on a pair of boxing gloves in China. But there's some real talent coming up. There's some talent in the amateur system. There's some other fighters that are kind of established over there that need representation. There's actually some Asian fighters who are here who need some representation, have been calling us. So I've been, it's just been since the first Joyce fight, the phones have been ringing off the hook. But yeah, there's some talent coming out of Asia. I mean, it's taken a few generations just to get them up on not just the boxing talent, but how to cultivate the talent, how to build the fighters, how to coach them, how to train them. That's all taken just generations to get to where we're at now. But now they're real players. It's truly a global sport now.
And you just mentioned that about yourself, that you sort of fell into this position and sort of where you're at now. Your role is an advisor. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have like an advisement group. It's me, my brother, Kurt Lee, our partner, and then our partner, Scott Schaefer, who's also our attorney.
Got you. So just for clarification for the boxing fans, we always hear, manager, advisor, this, that thrown around. We don't ever question what is an advisor, what is a manager, what is your role in the career of a boxer? Can you give us a bit of insight as what you actually do on a day-to-day as an advisor?
I guess it's similar as a manager. I guess traditionally I think of managers as guys who are also in the gym and, who like work the corner, which is something I've never done. I kind of stay out of my lane or stay in my lane and stay out of other people's lanes. So listen, there's so much overlap and so much gray area in that there's really not a clear answer to to how to distinguish the promoter. Like, if you ask me, I don't know how much time you have, like, I think the real promoters are the networks and the people, paying writing the big checks. And then so like the promoters are almost their kind of version of a middleman, but they have the rights to the platforms and the broadcast. Anyway, you're wearing so many different hats and there's so much blurred, but as long as like the fighter isn't getting cheated, then there is kind of like room for all these different roles. But again, I don't have like a solid like answer for you, but no, I'm making sure like negotiate the best contracts, get the money as high, make sure he gets paid, and but Gillet makes my life really easy. So I mean, and we're, like I said, we're really happy with Queensbury.
Excellent. That's fine. It's just interesting as fans, and I know that a lot of people have these questions. What do they actually do? How does it all work? But like you said, there's so many different roles in boxing and so many different people juggling things. It's hard to sort of pin down exactly what it is, but that's fine. Respect that. And advisors, like you said, Al Heyman is a guy who, is known as the sort of kingpin, and he's always been there in the background. This weekend, obviously, we just saw yesterday Canelo versus Charlo. Did you manage to catch the fight?
Actually, I was so jet lagged I did not, but I did pick the fight right. I said Canelo decision. I understand it wasn't much of a fight. I've seen some highlights. I saw the knockdown. So I picked the method right. I picked the right side. But it sounds like I thought Charlo was going to be a lot more competitive than it sounds like he was. Yeah. I'll rewatch it. But look, I think it's time to do Benavidez for Canelo.
That would be Cinco de Mayo next weekend. That would be a monster fight.
That'd be great.
And he's going to be called as a mandatory anyway because he's the interim champion for the WBC. So he is going to be called as a mandatory. So we'll have to see what Canelo feels like doing. He can do what he wants. But hopefully, I think that is a fight that makes sense at 168. Yeah. Touching on, obviously, Canelo and Showtime, I don't know if you've heard the rumors over the last week. Again, nothing's confirmed. No one's come out and said anything. But there's potential rumors that Showtime may be making an exit from their regular sort of boxing broadcasts and the regular shows, and maybe staying about for the sporadic pay-per-views. Steven Espinoza was sort of questioned by a few people this week, and he didn't deny it, but he didn't confirm it either. He left it in the middle somewhere. What's your opinion on something like that? And when you have the big organizations like HBO who left in 2018, and then Showtime potentially exiting now, there's always going to be, like you said, boxing will always survive. They'll always find another way to get it going. But how does it look to the outside person who's looking at the sport saying, okay, these big brands, HBO was like a mainstay, Showtime's a mainstay. When they're exiting from this sport, then what does that say about boxing and where it is at the moment? Because we're saying we've had the best year in many years. So why are we hearing these sort of things, do you think?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm 40 years old. I mean, to think that to know boxing without both HBO and Showtime is like unthinkable. But I do think the product has slipped on Showtime's end in the past few years. So I have talked to people. I think there's some truth to this. But like, you know, I don't know why that is. I mean, I really don't. Again, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and it's just my opinions. But I've also had some interesting meetings too that like there could be shifts where boxing, there's the fight for live content on these streaming platforms, you know, Apple TV, you know, the Amazons of the world, the Peacock. I don't know if Peacock, it's an NBC platform here. But like there's this rush now for live sports content. And frankly, boxing is pretty cheap content. So I think you're going to see boxing land in some of these other streaming platforms that have these great, you know, these great, you know, subscriberships anyway. So like you said, boxing, it's always going to find a home. But there might be a little bit of time that we're just gonna have to see how this plays out. But yeah, I was as surprised at the news, but also not surprised at it when it was kind of starting to break. Actually, when we were in London around that time. But yeah, Steven seemed a little defensive. So I mean, but I've talked to some people. There's some truth to it.
Well, fingers crossed for us as boxing fans. We just want the sport to thrive, don't we? So wherever it ends up, and if it is true, fingers crossed the sport carries on this sort of upward trajectory of this year. Just two quick fire questions for you before we go, Terry. Very straightforward. For you personally, the best or favorite fight of yours ever that you've seen?
Does it have to be live? Because I've seen a lot live. I'll give you. I was at the Bo Holyfield 2, the rematch where it's Riddick Bowe's only loss, where the Fan Man fight. I don't know. Are you aware of this fight?
Yeah.
It was So I'll say that one just because it's like a core memory for me.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, straightforward. It's all hypothetical with pound for pound and all that sort of stuff. In your opinion, the three top fighters in the world right now?
Inoue, gosh, man. I guess you have to say Canelo after last night. Inoue, Canelo. Oh man. I'm gonna throw in, if we're talking pound for pound, I'll throw in Usyk too.
Usyk as well. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Terry. Well, thank you for giving me obviously a bit of your time tonight. I really appreciate that. I know you're a very busy man. And hopefully in the coming weeks we can touch base again just to see if there's been any progress with Zhang and any movement on his next sort of moves, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Feel free to check in, and thanks for having me. Great to be on.
Thank you for your time, Terry. I appreciate it, bro.
All right. Take care. All right.
Take care. Thank you, Terry.
Take care.